Even though I'm a lion, not having any courage is it's a problem. And as I understand it, it's the reason you're on retreat. To learn how to be smart, full of heart, and fearless. Something like that?
Something like that.
Well, my name is the Cowardly Lion. You can just call me Lion for short, or L-Dog if you're in a pinch. I want to tell you a story. A story about somebody very important. But before that, I want to do a little bit of a recap. So, I want to do a little bit of a recap, right? Friday evening, I think you guys heard from the Scarecrow. My mane inhibits my field of vision. From the Scarecrow. What did the Scarecrow tell you? Go for it, Seth.
That what matters is on the inside, not on the outside.
It's good. What's on the inside that matters. And I think the Tin Man maybe continued that. What did the Tin Man tell you?
God loves you, no matter if you're smart or dumb. You shouldn't go. You should be there just for God and not for anyone else.
Should be there just for God. What else did the Tin Man say? Anything else? Maybe about your heart? Have a full heart, that's good. What do we need to do to have a full heart? That's good, so we need to empty our hearts of sin. And then what do we need to do? Go to confession, that's good. And what do we do when our hearts are empty? What does God do to them? He fills them up. That's right. And so now I want to talk to you about how you can keep your heart filled. How you can keep your heart filled after you leave Oz and after you go home when you're back in the real world, Kansas or wherever you guys are from. I want to talk about how to keep your heart full, feeling like you're on a retreat. And to take that, it's going to take courage. But not just any kind of courage. Real spiritual courage. And I want you guys to take a few seconds and think to yourself and ask yourself one question. What are you afraid of? And I don't mean lions and tigers or bears. Oh my. What I mean is, what are you really afraid of? What is that one thing that keeps you from living out your faith? And this is a question inside. All right? You don't have to raise your hand and ask it. Well, what's that thing that keeps you from really living out your faith? I mean, really living out your faith, you know? Praying like you should and acting the way you should around others. I think for me, when I was a young cub, going to Lion School, it was what other people thought about it. That was a really, really big thing. I know your youth minister, Ken, he got eaten by flying monkeys. But he once told me when he was in middle school that his biggest concern, his biggest fear, was how people would look at him when he went to say grace at the lunch table. It's kind of scary sometimes, being Christian, living out your faith, taking a stand, because it means making people uncomfortable. It means confronting things that scare us. And sometimes these fears can become so big, they're almost like giants. And that's where I wanted to tell you about somebody very important. Somebody very important in the Old Testament, who not only saw his giants, but he fought them and he overcame them. You guys all know the story. I'm talking about King David killing Goliath. Now Goliath, we all know he was a giant. All right? But he wasn't just this big, ugly giant. He was the biggest, scariest, meanest giant of the times. I want you guys to imagine the worst bully in your high school, or middle school. Imagine the worst bully that you know. you don't know one, think about one from a movie. Now add about 6, 7 feet to his height, cover his entire body in muscles, and he knows how to kill somebody 100 different ways. That's who Goliath was. That's who Goliath was. And at this time in Israel, they were at war with a group of people called the Philistines. And they had their battle lines drawn up. And every day Goliath would come out and stand in front of the Israelite army with all of his weapons, and he would just pound on his chest and say, Israel, which one of you is man enough to come out and fight me? All the Israelite soldiers said, no, he's big, he's mean, he's ugly, he's a giant. How can you kill a giant? How can you kill someone that makes you so afraid? Enter David. David was probably no older than you guys. He was young. The only thing he knew how to do was to be a shepherd. He had no military training whatsoever. So he's out there, right? He sees Goliath come out and do his spiel, and all these soldiers are scared to death. They're shaking in their boots. And David says something very profound. He says to them, should have highlighted. Who is this Philistine, in any case, that he should insult the armies of the living God? Who is this Philistine, any case, that he should insult the armies of the living God? That's really important. Because David says something that nobody else sees. He says, the armies of God. There's one army on the battlefield, right? The Israelites. David's faith in God allows him to see something that none of the other soldiers around him can see. He sees that God has a plan. That God is there in the midst of facing that big, ugly giant. And he's going to bring Goliath down. David has the faith to see that, wow, that giant looks mean, he looks ugly, and he looks scary. But with God, he can be brought down. He can be absolutely destroyed. David's faith allows him to see what no other soldier can see. So he goes and he talks to the king of Israel. And he says, hey, I'm going to go fight Goliath. The king's reaction, he laughs at him. He's like, what are you going to do? You're scrawny. They try to put the armor that the soldiers wear on him. He can't lift it. He's not strong enough. He can't carry the sword or the shield in the battle. They're like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't use any of these weapons. He's a monster. He's a giant. He's going to kill you. And David looks at him and he says something again, very profound. He says, the Lord who delivered me from the claws of the lion and the bear will also keep me safe from the clutches of this Philistine. David said he knew from his time as a shepherd that sometimes animals would come and try to attack the livestock. And he said, God always kept me safe. He protected me from them. This giant is not going to be any different. So David goes to go into battle. But he can't carry a sword or a shield. He needs something else. So he goes and he picks up a rock. My assistant, this cub here, I'll take one. I'm going to pass each of you a rock. He goes down to the river. He picks up a rock. 5 of them, to be precise. And he puts them in his pocket. And he goes out to face Goliath. Because David can only carry one weapon. He only knows how to use one weapon. And that's a slingshot. Okay? And in David's day and age, taking a slingshot against Goliath, that's like trying to kill an elephant with a spitball. Okay? It doesn't work. It's a bad idea. And every soldier seeing David going out going, man, this guy's going to get destroyed. In fact, Goliath when he sees David, the only soldier coming out to challenge him, he laughs. He laughs. He says, Israel, this is the best you can do? You're going to send this scrawny nobody with a rock to kill me? This is the best you have. And David's faith doesn't waver. When he sees that, he says, today the Lord shall deliver you into my hand. I will strike you down. This very day I will leave your corpse and the corpse of the Philistine army with the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. And thus the whole land shall learn that Israel has a God. The whole land shall learn that Israel has a God. Those are fight words. And Goliath doesn't mess around. He pulls out all of his weapons and he charges David. And we know how the story ends. David puts one rock in his slingshot. One rock. Whack. Hits Goliath square in the forehead. He drops. Battle won. Lucky shot? I don't think so. The point of the story is this, guys. Whatever your giant is, whatever your Goliath is, maybe you know there's a bad situation waiting for you at home. Maybe you know it's that one kid in your school that just always picks on you. You know, maybe it's something outside of your control that just robs you of your joy. You look at it and you say, where is God in all of this? How can I bring down this situation, this giant? How can I get through it? It's impossible. I want you guys to look at this rock. And remember that with God, nothing is impossible. If you have the courage to stand up to your giant, whatever that giant is, God will be able to kill it. Because the best warrior in the whole world, the one that scared all the best soldiers of Israel, he was killed with a little rock. This little thing you're holding in your hands. That's all it took. That's all it took. Because David knew if he put his life in God's hands, God would not let him down. Our God is a God who keeps his promises. If he orders food, he sticks around to pay the bill. Okay? He doesn't give up on us. And so whatever situation you find yourself in that makes you afraid, that makes you wonder, where is God? How can I be who God is calling me to be when these things are going on around you? Have the heart of David. Have the heart of David to look at Goliath and realize he's not the only thing in the picture. Because with a little rock, God can kill a great strength. We're getting ready to go into a time of prayer soon. What I want you to do is look at this rock. And don't just see it as a rock. Ask yourself, what do you need to kill the giant in your life? What do you need to slay the Goliath in your life? It might be something small, like a rock, like a little bit of hope, a little bit of faith, maybe a little bit of courage. And ask God with all your heart and all your soul to give that to you. Because if we only focus on our giants, we're going to tremble like the Israelite army. But when we focus on God, that's when our giants come. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I have to say that was very inspirational, Ryan. Well done indeed. We now have all three leaders of Oz. But there's still one more thing we have to do. Can I have the three knights that we had chosen to come up here?